The 1985 hiatus did irreparable damage to the show's reputation. A once strong audience of up to 9 million seems like a lifetime ago. By 1989, Doctor Who was lucky to even hit 5 million, with most episodes reaching 3 to 4 million viewers. Doctor Who was dying, and regeneration was not an option. Today, we're going to discuss Doctor Who's slow decline in popularity during the Sylvester McCoy era, why that era is loved by fans, and how the show was ultimately cancelled.
Property is an old one, it's had its day, and is no longer commercially viable, so that doesn't look too hopeful.
Doctor Who was put on hiatus in 1985, and the reaction from audiences and fans alike was outrage. But when the show returned with Trial of a Time Lord, the audience numbers fell from 6 to 8 million to 3 to 5 million viewers. This ultimately led to the firing of Colin Baker, the 6th incarnation of the Doctor. The show needed to change. It needed to evolve. First things first, Doctor Who needed a doctor. Who was it to be? Sylvester McCoy was performing in a play called The Pied Piper when he first heard that they were looking for a new doctor and called John Nathan Turner, Doctor Who's producer at the time.
My agent phoned up JNT and he said, Sylvester who? And he said, exactly, that's what I'm trying to tell you. And so he brought me in for an interview. And I came in wearing this hat and he fell in love with the hat and gave me the job.
McCoy's performance in the show started quite light and comedic, but eventually evolved into something much darker and mysterious. Eric Sayward, the previous script editor, left at the conclusion of Trial of a Time Lord, and the show needed someone fresh. Andrew Cartmel met with Nathan Turner, and they hit it off straight away. I didn't impress him as being an idiot. He'd read a script of mine and obviously saw qualities in there demonstrating that I knew what a good TV script should be. Cartmel became instrumental in making Sylvester's era drastically different from anything that came before. He attempted to bring a mystery back to the Doctor and fleshed out the role of the companion, serving as a precursor to the new series. Doctor Who was growing up. But is this what audiences were looking for? Did they even have a choice? Doctor Who was moved from its prime time Saturday night slot to Monday nights. To make matters worse, it was put against ITV's juggernaut Coronation Street. It was a battle the Doctor could not win.
What I can't understand is why the BBC put Doctor Who against Coronation Street.
Yes, there's a lot of us can't understand that. Well, that must be something to do with the controller. I mean, I think they hoped that it might dent Coronation Street.
Maybe we should have a campaign.
Yes,
for
put
them
it
to
on at a
change
better
it.
time. Or at the moment, just put it on.
Sylvester said in 1996, I was thinking about the justice of the way the BBC treated Doctor Who. They would chop and change it, move it around. They used to do 26 episodes. That had a build-up effect. It had an effect of regularity, a regular place, and people would watch it and know it's there. An audience is essentially very lazy. They don't want to chase it around. Only the dedicated fans do. Rumours of the show's end circulated during the production of season 26, Sylvester's third season as the Doctor. However, there was no official announcement of cancellation. John Nathan Turner went to script editor Andrew Cartmel to write a voiceover speech to add at the end of Survival, just in case it was the end of the series as a whole. The speech was recorded by Sylvester on the 23rd of November, 1989, 26 years after the first ever episode was broadcast. With ratings dwindling and rumours ramping up, BBC head of serials Peter Grigine wrote a statement for the Radio Times between the broadcast of parts 1 and 2 of Survival. I would like to reassure Doctor Who devotees that there are no plans to axe Doctor Who. There may be a little longer between this series and the next than usual, but I very much hope that it will continue to be as successful in the 90s as it has been for the last 26 years. This was a very different announcement compared to what we had had previously. In 1985, when the show was put on hiatus, a figure of 18 months was given, This was a different beast altogether. Many people interpreted this statement differently. Doctor Who magazine at the time said they thought cancellation was unlikely if the ratings were enough to satisfy the higher-ups. They also pointed out the successful merchandise sales and the growing home video market as the reasons why the show would stay on.
I also think it's rather strange that for a product that they also make in this market-orientated times, rumour has it, it makes $5 million a year for the BBC. So if that rumour is right, then perhaps they've just lost £5 million potential by not doing it this year.
Little did they know that selling merchandise for a show that's off the air was still incredibly profitable without the added expense of producing the show. Months pass with no official announcement. Television production at the BBC was changing rapidly. Pressure from the government to outsource production to independent companies was rising. BBC staffers became freelancers, and more competition emerged due to satellite television and home video sales. The industry had changed, and Doctor Who, in its current state, could not compete. It had to evolve. The idea was to outsource the production of Doctor Who to an external company. It would still be the BBC's property and its broadcaster, but they wouldn't make it in-house. Similar to how Bad Wolf currently creates Doctor Who. Many bids were placed from a variety of companies to produce Doctor Who, including Cinema Verity, which was run by the original producer Verity Lambert, and Saffron Productions, helmed by Victor Pemberton, Terry Nation, and Jerry Davis, all of whom had been involved with Doctor Who in the past. Victor spoke to Doctor Who magazine saying that he heard nothing back from the BBC. He called it a wall of silence. By 1991, fans were getting restless, waiting for an official response. Is it cancelled? Will it be outsourced? Campaigns began with writing letters and phone calls, even getting to the point where the BBC logged over 500 calls in one day.
Don't you think haranguing the BBC might alienate them further from Doctor Who fans?
They said they would give an announcement in a few months, and they didn't, and there was a few more months and they didn't, and we were patient and patient. It's been a year now, and I think they're just hoping we'll go away. And this day of action is to show that we're not going to go away. We don't particularly want to make a nuisance of ourselves, but we still want to show the BBC and the public that there are lots of people out here that care about the programme.
Doctor Who magazine urged fans to write and call politely rather than abusively. There were even talks of organising a protest outside of BBC Television Centre. One of the craziest stories is this headline from Doctor Who magazine issue 179. Doctor Who fans consider suing the BBC for £30 million. Frustrated with the radio silence from the Beeb, they wish to sue Jonathan Powell and Peter Cushing for fraudulent misuse of their position in a public body. They claim that the $30 million was to cover the loss of the 3 seasons they didn't receive. It's nice to know Doctor Who fans have always been this dramatic. Sorry, editing Josh here. This bit comes across way too harsh. I think fans had every right to be upset and to vocalise that. When writing, I focused on the few extreme stories, but I'm sure most people were polite and understandably disappointed about their favourite TV show being gone. Cushing, in his most transparent quote, said, "A decision was taken to rest the program for an extended period, so that when it returns, it will be seen as a fresh, inventive and vibrant addition to the schedule, rather than a battle-weary Time Lord languishing in the backwaters of audience popularity." He cited poor audience ratings, a competitive market, and the risk of relaunching Doctor Who on a less than stellar budget. If Doctor Who was to return, they had to be confident that it would be a major success once again. Although Doctor Who was off the air, that doesn't mean it didn't try to come back. John Nathan Turner remained at the BBC to oversee the Doctor Who brand.
79 to take the show firmly into the 80s. I didn't realise I'd still be there as we nipped into the 90s.
With the 30th anniversary approaching in 1993, he was trying to get a special commission to celebrate it. Unbeknownst to him, BBC Enterprises, the commercial arm of the BBC, now known as BBC Studios, was attempting to create their own straight-to-video release titled Lost in the Dark Dimension. This project reached pre-production and was eventually canned, due to a certain production company who was working on a television pilot. More on that later. Yet, the 30th would still be celebrated with 2 short sketches titled Dimensions in Time. Children in Need approached John Nathan Turner to produce these sketches. He treated it as a swan song for his time on Doctor Who, and it featured the return of Sylvester McCoy and all the surviving Doctors, and also many returning villains and companions. It wasn't received as the finest moment in Doctor Who's history, but it has a level of camp quality that is quite fun to watch. Maybe it was an accurate depiction of how the viewing public saw Doctor Who, as a rather silly, outdated, and campy show.
Not too camp at the end.
Oh. I thought this was a camp program, dear God. I've been under this delusion all these years.
In 2007, during a documentary for the DVD release of Survival, an interview with Cregeen was recorded where he stated once and for all that he did cancel Doctor Who. I think most people at that stage regarded it as a program that had seen better days. Andrew Cartmel, in an interview with Doctor Who magazine, was upset by this statement. How could you watch season 26 and not say, "This is way better than it was, give it a chance"? Sorry, but it makes me enraged. Sylvester's final 2 seasons amongst fans are rated quite highly, and I personally agree with Cartmel's take. Doctor Who had improved, but ultimately the higher-ups didn't agree with that. But Doctor Who would return to our screens in 1996 in its most expensive outing up to this point. Unlike Colin Baker, Sylvester did get a chance to regenerate and pass on the legacy to another actor. In 1996, a TV movie of Doctor Who was produced starring Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor. Sylvester returned for a substantial amount of screen time to say goodbye to a role that he loved so much. For Doctor Who enthusiasts like myself, it gave the 7th Doctor a conclusion. However, the 1989 cancellation and TV movie still left a gap in the 7th Doctor's timeline. What happened to Ace? Although there are millions of endings for Ace in the expanded universe that is worthy of its own video, Sophia Aldred did get the chance to return to the TV show in the 2022 episode, The Power of the Doctor. Ace reunited with the Doctor in her 13th incarnation, finally bringing closure to their rocky relationship. Ace mentions a falling out between her and her Doctor, possibly due to one of his many manipulations and mind games. She has now forgiven the Doctor, and they are on good terms. With The Power of the Doctor and Tales of the TARDIS having them reunite on screen after all of these years later, does it finally feel like the 1989 cancellation has found closure? Or do the events of that final day where Ace leaves the Doctor still feel shrouded in mystery? Ultimately, dear viewer, that is for you to decide. When reflecting on this time period of Doctor Who, it always makes me feel kind of sad. My first ever Sylvester McCoy story was Remembrance of the Daleks, and I instantly felt a spark with this era that I hadn't got from classic Doctor Who at the time. Now I love all of it, but the storytelling of Sylvester's era is much closer to the new series, focusing on the character of the companions. And I think this sentiment is shared by many Doctor Who fans, and this isn't some hot original take. His final 2 seasons is where I believe the show found a new identity, but due to many factors such as the hiatus and the new scheduling, it didn't get the audience it deserved. Doctor Who fans are constantly fearing that the show will get cancelled again. They have some sort of PTSD over the 1985 hiatus, the 1989 cancellation, and the lack of reboot until 2005. After every season since I've been a fan, people have said, well, this is it, it's over. They said it during Capaldi, they said it during Whittaker, and now Gatwa. Is Doctor Who done? Is it a victim of the times? Is there just so much content that barely anything is a ratings juggernaut? And I use the word content here because some big YouTubers and Twitch streamers can get millions of views for a fraction of the budget of a TV show. Either way, I think that is a wider conversation and everyone has their own thoughts in it. I honestly don't think there is just one reason why Doctor Who isn't at its height at the moment. It's the same with every major franchise. There is just so much out there, and I don't think we can just say, oh, this is the reason why it's not a success anymore. There are heaps of reasons. But this video is about 1989, a moment in history that changed the show forever, leaving a feeling of incompleteness, gone too soon, but maybe it was around for too long. I don't know. I think the show was really entering a resurgence when it came to scripts and performances, but it wasn't meant to be. As a Doctor Who fan who loves this era, it feels like an injustice. We'll never get to see those people made of smoke and cities made of song. I guess we'll just have to put up with the cold tea. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Josh Nez YouTube channel